Well, hello there. It's that time again. Yes, it surely is. It is time for our weekly tarot and astrology reading. And before I go further, I have to remember to say Happy New Year. Happy 2021. 2020, thank God, is behind us here on January the 3rd of 2021. Despite the new year, I'm going to continue with my format of looking at some tarot cards from the Tarot de Marseille that I've drawn at random for the upcoming week, and then we're going to look at some astrology. And as always, especially this time of year, it's going to be interesting, so do stay tuned. Okay, in a moment, 3 Tarot de Marseille trump cards are going to come onto the screen and cover my face. The cards I drew at random for this week's reading are Justice, the Tower, and Judgment. Ooh, these look kind of intimidating almost. I was a little stymied at first when I laid eyes on the spread, but if we look at it carefully and meditate upon it, it does become clear. To start off with, we have the Lady of Justice. She's sitting there calmly in her throne. She's holding in one hand a sword, the other a set of scales. Now, to correlate that with the next frame, we go from this very stolid sense of order and justice to pandemonium with the tower. We have lightning striking a tower with 2 people who perhaps are corresponding to the 2 sides of the scales, to the ground. So we could say what is balanced suddenly becomes very unbalanced, becomes chaotic, destructive. Then in the third frame, we see the Lady of the Justice card becoming the Angel of Judgment. She is blowing on a horn. She's raising up, presumably, the dead. But let's look at these dead more carefully. 2 people are there, perhaps the 2 from the Tower card, so perhaps what was upset, what fell to the ground, is now being raised up. A third figure stands in the middle, bluish in color. Perhaps this is a third party that's helping to unify things as things are being called back into order. Well, interesting, but what does that mean, Bob? Well, a practical way to look at it is those things which we have found to be disturbed, especially with 2020, now in the present, as Justice card is looking straight at us, in the present, we begin to pull into order. Yes, there is still disorder, and there are some things that may continue to be a bit disordered, but we call them up, we bring them back together, taking them into account, and establishing a new normal, so to speak. This is one way to look at what we'll be going through over the next week. We could extend this throughout the year. I'm not big on doing huge readings for the year because generally people aren't going to remember them. I keep it week to week, but I feel this kind of sets a theme for the year. Finding that stasis, reestablishing that stasis that was broken with all this disorder from COVID-19 and other things that have been going on. Been a very tumultuous year. And then things begin to rise up, vibrations rise, and we start to get a handle on things. Now, looking at our astrology, we don't have an awful lot because this is a waning moon. So the moon is decreasing in power. This is a good time for getting rid of things, eliminating things from our lives that we don't need, like 2020. Getting rid of poverty, lack of job, lack of motivation, lack of self-esteem, anything that you find, medical issues, anything you find that's bothering you, acting as an obstacle, this is an opportunity to get rid of it. This is going to go on until next week. On the 13th, we'll have a new moon, which is a whole nother discussion. But in the meantime, it's good to get rid of stuff. There's no particularly strong days. We don't have really good planetary rulerships correlating with lunar activity, like the moon applying certain aspects to certain planets on days of the week that they rule. And this is what I look for. but we still have that waning moon energy. Now it's interesting to note on the 6th of January, on the day that they're going to certify the votes in the Electoral College, or actually in Congress, I'm sorry, the certification in Congress, we're going to have the moon basically in a square aspect with 4 different planets. It's going to be squaring Mercury, squaring the Sun, squaring Saturn, and Jupiter. Now these are all things that deal with communication and authority. So it is going to be a very, very colorful event. I don't get political on these blogs. I don't want to do that. But I just know this is going to be a very tumultuous time. And it kind of fits back in with what we saw with the tarot cards, where we have a judgment going on which becomes disrupted, and then things are called up into account. So it's going to be an interesting week ahead of us, as well as an interesting new year. Well, there you go. There is your weekly tarot and astrology reading. I love you so much for supporting me. Thank you for watching this blog. Without you, it would not be meaningful. Until I see you next week, many, many blessings.